Welcome to What's on Your Bookshelf with your hosts, Denise Russo and Samantha Powell.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What's on Your Bookshelf. This is a life and leadership podcast where we are exploring what we're learning on the pages of the books that are on our shelves. We are in the midst of going through a really great best-selling book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you don't have this book on your bookshelf, highly recommend that you get it. James also has a lot of great free content available on his website, and you can even sign up to have daily emails from him with really short, simple, attractive, easy to adopt and adapt information as you're building good habits in life. My name's Denise Russo, and I am here again today with my friend Sam Powell. We are now at the end of law number 3, which is about making it easy. And we're in chapter number 14, which I'm so looking forward to. It's about how to make good habits inevitable and make bad habits impossible. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I am super looking forward to this chapter because I want to rid all of the things that are making it easy, simple, and attractive for me to have bad habits in my life.
All right, we'll see if we can solve that for you by the end of this episode.
Sounds good. So if you were to think about what did you take away from this chapter?
So this is the last chapter in this third law, which is where we look at like the inverse of it, right? So this is making it difficult, making the things you don't want to be doing difficult, right? Because this chapter is all about making it easy, but this is your okay, but you do have things you don't want to be doing, right? So we've talked about how to make it easy on the things you want to do. So this is about increasing the friction on the stuff you don't want to be doing. So this is actually the opposite of our law we're in, which is how do you make your good habits easy, but your bad habits difficult so that you're doing it, right? And so James kicks this right off with making your bad habits more difficult by creating what psychologists call a commitment device. And a commitment device is a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. And so this is where I always joke around about like, I thank past version of myself. I'm like, thanks past Sam for doing this thing that made future Sam, current Sam, really good. So these are the things like current Sam can make and do that force future Sam into the choice that we want, right? So this is like when times are tough, when your motivation wanes, when you're stressed out. Current Sam took care of that for future Sam and made it hard to make the bad choice.
That's really awesome. And in the beginning of the chapter, Victor Hugo did something to make one choice super crazy hard. So I, as everybody knows by now, am a huge Disney fan. And one of the, let's say, lesser popular, but really amazing soundtrack animated films is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Well, that was actually from a book written in 1930 by a guy, or 1830, excuse me, by a guy named Victor Hugo. So Victor, when he was writing this book, he had promised his publisher he was going to get them the book way earlier than he finished it. And don't we know how difficult that is? Because you try to make promises based on a prediction, but he just couldn't get it done. And because why? He had bad habits. He did other things. He prioritized different projects. He went on vacations, had parties with people over to the house. And just there was lots of things that were making that habit of finishing not a reality. And so his publisher was super frustrated and basically was like, get it done or we're not publishing the book. So what he did to beat the procrastination and to get rid of this bad habit of not finishing the book was that he had an assistant, and he told his assistant to literally lock all of his clothes in a closet, and all he was going to wear was a shawl And he's going to write this book with just the shawl on until the book was done. So imagine that, like, it took him 12 months to not get anything done. Now he thinks I'm going to get this book done within days because all I'm going to wear is this shawl. And have such a relatable story that goes with this that I'll share, is that in November of last year, I found out that one of my dearest heart friends from college was diagnosed with cancer. And some of you have heard me talk about her. Her name is Wendy. And thank you for those of you that are praying, people that are praying for Wendy. And when I found out about her diagnosis, not only did it strike me that she was someone who in life has always and continues to be someone who makes really great habits, but now she doesn't have time in her life to waste on making bad habits. And for me, something that I had procrastinated for about 4 years on was that I really wanted to publish a book. And I just didn't do it. I had excuse after excuse. And finally, in that week, when I found out about Wendy, I decided that if there was one thing that I could take off my bucket list if my tomorrows weren't promised, which, hey, by the way, sidebar for everyone listening, nobody's tomorrow is promised. So I decided that I needed to write this book. And so between the week before Thanksgiving and December 1st, I didn't lock my clothes in a closet, but for all intents and purposes, you can say that I put on a shawl, put my head down, wrote that book, got it published, didn't realize that it would then become the #1 release on Amazon and go on to have great success. And it was all because I had to remove the things around me that were bad habits, and I needed to have something that was time sensitive or time intensive in this case to create a good habit. And so if you're curious, the name of the book is called 12 Days, A Christmas Exploration. Depending on when this episode comes out, it may or may not be before or after Christmas, but I hope you'll check it out. It's a labor of love that I had written over 4 years, but it only took me finally 2 weeks to publish it. It's sort of like when we see famous songs come out and we think, wow, that artist is an overnight success. That overnight was like many nights that led to that overnight success. But this is all about creating a commitment and then sticking to it. Sam, you were talking to me earlier off the microphone about these commitment devices and in regards to even doing things like grocery shopping. So talk to me a little bit about how do you break bad habits or create good habits when you're going to the grocery store where there's an abundance of choices.
Yeah, so I think it's that thing, right? You've got to prepare for the situation that's coming up, right? You know that you're going, right? Again, as we've built this whole book. You've got an identity that you want to have. You know the actions that you need to take to get there. You kind of broken it down, right? But then this is you putting in all your protective armor for when you're in the situation where you would make the decision you don't want to make, in the future. So that would be the thing where like, okay, I would like to eat healthier. So I come up with a list of stuff and I'm only allowed to buy things on this list, right? That's the thing that you've done, right? So you've prepared in your head, I'm only buying these healthy things. And so, okay, when I'm there, I've only bought the list. Or I utilize something like Instacart or a delivery feature where somebody just brings me the things. I don't even go to the store. I don't even go near that temptation if, that's something you're able to do. But you do something that makes it to where making that bad decision would be really hard or pretty difficult to do. And then the only food you have in the house is the stuff that's healthy. So in order to go eat the ice cream or eat the chips or whatever, you'd have to leave your house to go buy it, right? It's way more difficult when you've got to get in the car, drive to the place, go to the store, find the thing, check out, right? You've gone through all these steps where you could be rethinking the decision, to do that a little bit differently. And so that's what we talk about when we think about these commitment devices. It's what do you do now that ensures when you're in that moment when you want to make the other choice, the choice you don't really want to make, how do you make it super hard for yourself? How do you make it difficult to go do those future actions, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago, Vincent, my son, he was playing soccer, and it was at a period of time where I'm remembering back, Olivia was in her dorm already at school. So it was just me and Vincent at home. And Vincent is like me, overcommitted to lots of things. And so he was playing golf and soccer and homework and was getting ready to graduate from high school. And I was working full time. And so we were having a really hard time going from me finishing work to picking him up for one sport, dropping him off for that sport, picking him back up from that sport to take him to the other sport, and getting all of his homework done, and somehow putting nutrition into that kid's body. So what we decided to do, now this is about, making things impossible and bad. Well, what we needed to make impossible and bad was the easy thing. It would have been easy to pick him up from school, stop by McDonald's, scarf down some really bad food while he's changing his clothes in the car to get to the first sport. So what we ended up doing was thinking about, okay, what are some healthy things that will give you enough energy to go through golf practice, because that was before soccer. And then when I dropped him off at golf practice, I would come home and we started buying something called Green Chef, which is like pre-packaged, like pre-measured amounts of food, amazingly good, by the way. I probably should be getting paid for saying this on this podcast, but I highly recommend that subscription service, and it became our favorite. And so it's easy to make and really good to eat. So when I would drop Vincent off at golf, I would go home, make the Green Chef, because it only took anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to make the meal. I'd have the meal ready. I'd actually then package it up, pick him up, take him to soccer, and he'd have just enough time there to be able to eat and digest, but where we could have a good meal that wasn't fast food. And it was so impressive, the food quality, that we would take pictures of it and post it on the internet. It was that good. And so then when we would get home, he wouldn't have to go quickly over to some chips or something bad to feed him, but it was easy because it was pre-packaged. On the same hand, though, I think you made a comment earlier about making sure that the things you're doing are not only sustainable for you and your lifestyle, but sustainable for the world that we live in. So we all know about these bulk stores like Sam's, Costco, BJ's, what have you. And it's really easy now to go and either buy bulk foods in big giant bags, or you can buy these big giant bags, but with pre-portioned amounts in the bags. And this is where we see all of the stuff on the internet now about meal planning and portion sizes and how to do things that are healthy for you. But I want to just talk about a little bit about how do we make sure that the choices that we're making, Sam, for ourselves are not unhealthy for other people, like the choices we make in our lives, whether it's food, whether it's exercise, whether it's work habits, whether it's friendship and relationship habits. How do we make sure that if we're breaking bad habits, that the breaking of those bad habits doesn't break other people too?
Yeah, right. And I think that that's good, right? It's this balance between convenience and sustainability for the community, whatever that means to you, like around you, right? Because that's important too. And again, that goes back to the identity-based habit. Who am I trying to become, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at what cost, right? Is it a cost I'm willing to pay or not willing to pay? Is it a cost that I'm paying or that others are paying, right? I think is some of what we think about, right? So you could go to the store and say like, okay, I'm going to buy this snack that's, falls into what I consider good for me, right? Or whatever. And I can either buy it in a bulk giant bag that's got one bag of trash, or I can buy it in a bag that's got a bag, and then inside that bag are more bags, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's already portioned out, right? That makes it easier. That makes it great. But maybe that bothers you because you're someone that doesn't want to generate a lot of waste in your life and things like that. So then it's, well, how do I make this easy in a way that meets the identity that I want to have, right? What does that look like? If that's somebody that like, that's not a concern for you, then that's an easy option, right? Like you just get the single portioned out bags and that's that. But if you're somebody where like, oh gosh, I hate to have all that extra trash, bothers you, then you've got to find a solution that's easy, but fits in with who you're trying to become. So that could be an alternate, like, okay, I buy the giant bag of snacks because it's easy to have them in here, right? Reduces the friction of me like having to go to the store, 4 times a month, and I have it all in one. But maybe I have a very special bowl that I love that makes me happy, that is the right size portion. And so I just eat the snack out of that bowl. bowl. So I don't reach for the giant bag and eat to my heart's content.
Mhm,
I have a
mhm.
plan that I eat these chips or whatever, veggie straws, whatever they are, right? I eat the thing that I like, or this, bushel of grapes, like out of this one bowl or this containers, or I pre-make them, that's where meal
Mhm.
planning comes in, right? Like I make them in a way to where I can grab them just as easy. They're as easy as the individual bags, but in a way that maybe fits with who I'm trying to be. So when you think about that, it has to be congruent with your overall identity that
Yeah.
you're trying to become. And like that's one example, but you've really got to think about what that looks like for you. And you could do that in a million different aspects of really anything that you're trying to do and become, but it has to be congruent with your utmost core, right? That, why am I doing it? That identity that I want to have, or else you're inserting more friction. So we're talking about inserting friction against the things that you don't want to be and reducing it entirely against the things that you do want to be.
I love that you just said something about getting your favorite bowl or something, because this is something I know about you is I believe you have some favorite cups that you have like an emotional connection to, as do I. And my mom is the same way. My mom's got an entire cabinet of like the quote unquote, the good stuff, the good dishes. And I remember her telling me this story when I was a little girl, that one time my nanny, who is my grandmother, my dad's mom, she was doing something with my mom that struck my mom so poignantly that my nanny was using the good dishes for something simple, like maybe it was even just a snack. And my mom said to her, well, why are you using the good stuff? Like, this is only for Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or whatever it was. And my nanny looked at my mom and she said, I ain't leaving nothing for Tilly. And that was her saying that we've stuck by all these years. I ain't leaving nothing for Tilly. And so, in other words, if you've got something that brings you joy, we often talk about the Marie Kondo book about the life-changing magic of tidying up. And one of the things that Marie teaches is that if there's something that gives you joy and love, that you hold on to that with gratitude. And so I often, when I am eating something that I love or that I want to be healthy around, I'll take out the quote unquote good dishes. And I can imagine now that you're saying that out loud to me too, Sam, with your story, that if it was something bad that I want to break that bad habit on and make it impossible, if I put something bad on the good dish, I know I wouldn't want to eat it because the good dish has a sentimental value to me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely right. And so I used to eat or not used to. I still do. Let's be real. Eat ice cream out of mugs. One, because I like having a handle or whatever. But also like I like that. So I would always use my favorite mugs for my ice cream. And so now it's like, well, now that I'm trying to not like, let's decrease the ice cream intake because that is something I'd like to do and up it. It's like, well, maybe I should just reuse that mug and that's what I'm going to put my favorite little healthy snack in, right? Like I still get to use it, I still get to see it, but it's that positive association to, to the thing. I have to bust out all my mugs, but I have a bunch of I have a bunch of cups and teapots and things that I like that just bring me joy. And so it helps kind of do it. But yeah, if you've got a plan, right, it's getting that plan in place, that how do I do the thing really easily, but how do I maybe put in some barriers to the things I don't want to be doing too, right? Like, oh, I can't use that favorite mug for ice cream anymore because I don't allow that, right? That's not who I am. That's not what I allow. And so therefore it's like, I never get to see my favorite mug because because I eat some ice cream, right? I'm going to eat it out of the ugly bowl that I absolutely hate and detest. I'm not sure why I even still own it, right? Like little things that help you do that. But when we think about these, it's leaning into those to the extreme, right? When we're thinking about putting this friction in, it is like, I can't make any other choice but the one I want to because I'm doing it, right? I don't even have ice cream in the house because I will not eat it, right? Like it's taking it to that level of like, I can't make the choice I don't want to make, right? At all. And
let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about how do you make something extreme? So maybe would an example be that let's say that you're someone who wants to lose weight. Would an example be that you take out of your closet maybe clothes that either fit you a little bit loosely or something like that, and either put them
Yeah.
aside or donate them, because I'm one that probably has the opposite problem. I have tons of clothes in my closet that no longer fit, because in my mind I keep thinking, oh, one day those will fit me again.
Right, right. And in reality, like they're so out of fashion by the time I come back around to
Yes.
them that like, although all my clothes from like junior high and high school are now coming way back into fashion, but I absolutely could not wear them. So should have kept those, I guess. But yeah, that's exactly it, right? Like creating that space to where like, yeah, I've boxed up all the clothes that I don't notice that I've gained some weight in, right? Like all the yoga pants go in a container and I can't wear them,
Yeah.
and so it's my option is to wear workout clothes that I can wear that
Right.
are comfy, right? So I'm already in my workout clothes, or I got to put on the jeans that are too tight and they give me that physical reminder of remember that
Mhm.
time you wanted to be a little healthier? Like, yeah, right? Like,
Oh
because
my
that's what I think
gosh.
about it, right? Like when I'm wearing like the clothes that are uncomfortable, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate the way I feel in this. It just doesn't
Mhm.
feel comfortable. And it's like, well, what would make it feel comfortable? Getting a little healthier. Right? Like I would
Right.
feel better if I did that, but I've made it too easy to feel like, super loungy and, whatnot. So I think it's finding those things that work for you. I think that's such a good, don't take my yoga pants away from me. Love them. It's all I wear.
I don't know. The book says we have to make bad habits impossible. I think a challenge for me this week, definitely, I think what I need to do this week, I'm going to take an action on this because we have a whole bunch of snacks in the house because we recently had an event where we have leftovers. I think I'm going to have to do some conscious food cleaning and get everything in one space that I know is not going to physically serve me well, and see what I can do with it. Like, I don't want to give somebody else bad food. That's not that it's bad because it's not old, but bad because it's not good for them, maybe. But I will say this, we also had another event not long ago. You and I hosted an event not long ago where we were super conscious about making sure that every food choice was something that would increase the ability for good habits. It was quality food, all organic. Even the forks and spoons were made out of plants, and the straws were made out of plants that we provided, all very consumable, recyclable, safe for the environment. So maybe that small little tweak will make good habits inevitable, but to make your bad habits impossible, it's going to take some cleaning up to get rid of the things that surround you that aren't serving you.
Yeah. And I think to do that, right, you got to get yourself in a good mindset, in a good place. Right? Like don't try to make the plan when you're feeling down on yourself. Get yourself into it. Like do the things that help you get into like I'm in full energy, my cup is overflowing, I'm ready to think about this, and then go make the plans that put all the friction on the things you don't want to be doing and all the grease on the things you do want to be doing. And that's, like that's really what this is about, is make the things you don't want to do hard, make the things you want to do easy, but you've got to get a plan for it, right? You've got to think about that in a space where you have time for it. So find whatever gets you into that energy and then sit down and make yourself a plan that you could legitimately do, right? And don't make it huge, right? Go back to the last episode, make it 2 minutes or less, right? Like make it something that's tangible and easy to really get there.
Yeah. And just to recap now, we've been talking about making tiny changes to compound to big differences, making things obvious, attractive, and easy. And so James gives some tips in the book. And if you have the book, we're talking about tips on page 173, which are as simple as doing things like if you want to have access to healthier, clean, safe drinking water, then go buy a water filter instead of just drinking water straight out of your sink. Or if you want to lower your portion sizes. In fact, this is something they even teach at things like Weight Watchers. If you put your food on a smaller plate, it somehow appears that there's more food there only because it's visually appealing. So use smaller plates. It'll actually reduce the amount of calories that you take. James also talks about things like if you want to get better quality of sleep, well, what is invading your sleep? Do you have your phone next to your bed? Do you have blue lights in your eyes before you go to sleep? Do you watch TV to fall asleep? If you do, maybe those are things that you need to remove from your room. What were a couple of your favorites on that list, Sam?
Yeah, I like that list of stuff, but it made me think of other things too, right? So like I liked the productivity, right? Of like turning off notifications and muting group chats. Like that's something I did. I use my phone to work for me. And so now none of my social media, none of these games that I have on my phone even turn on until a certain time. Like they're grayed out until a certain time in the morning because I don't want to start my day with that. I'll get to them eventually, but like it's significantly reduced my social media intake throughout the whole day, and it's putting me in a much more productive space. So like that one was a big one for me that I was like, ooh, yeah, I could utilize the technology to, to push me forward and kind of set up the environment in the way that I want it to.
So you're talking about automating something to make your life simpler. You were talking as well about something that some very successful people do, like presidents. What was that?
Yeah, I was I had heard about it a long time ago, but I was just reminded it again yesterday on a TikTok that there are been a few US presidents who wear the exact same thing every day. They wear the same suit, same tie, same shirt, everything, right? They've got like 10 of the same thing. And they do that to reduce friction and to open up their cognitive processing for better decision making. Presidents have to make so many decisions in a day, and these are like life and death, big time decisions, right? These are the ultimate decisions. And so to take out some of that decision fatigue, to free up that cognitive processing, to reduce the friction, they just wear the same thing every single day to do that. And so, I think about that as how do you extend that out, and how do you, how could you take some of the decision out of your every single day, right? Like food, this is where meal planning is such a like great tool, and something that I like want to get to here eventually, because it's right, it takes all the decision out of what are we going to eat for dinner tonight. Oh, I already decided that, right? I already bought all the things for it. Everything is ready, everything is half prepped for it or totally prepped, and I just have to throw it in the oven and go, right? Like what is that could take that out of it? Or hey, I eat, like for me right now, one of my goals was to add breakfast in, right? Increase my energy levels. I eat the exact same thing for breakfast every single morning. Like that might be boring, but it's easy. I grab a coffee.
One less decision, right?
It's one less thing. It's one less friction point, and it makes it easy to make the right decision because I already made that right decision ahead of time.
Awesome. Well, if we are wrapping up this chapter and this law, the book talks about really how to create good habits, how to break bad habits. At the end of this chapter, if you're following along, there's a whole chart that James shares about how to make these laws obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. And then he has something anybody can download. So if you're listening, and even if you don't have the book, if you go to atomichabits.com/cheat sheet, you'll be able to see the same things that we were talking about today. So when you come back and join us again next week, we're diving into the fourth law, which is called Make It Satisfying. And we'll be kicking it off by talking about the cardinal rule of behavior change. Hope this is adding value to you. If it is, we'd love to hear your feedback. Please share it with us. Scott puts comments in these show notes about how you can reach out to us, but we'd love your feedback. What are you taking away? What changes are you seeing? What habits are you breaking? What new habits have you been able to really have good results with? We'd love to hear that feedback. This has been a joy to get us this far together. Can't wait for the fourth law and to see how we continue to evolve and change together. My name is Denise Russo, and on behalf of my friend Sam Powell, this has been another episode of What's on Your Bookshelf.